What is good? Let's have some fun. It's the Fundamism podcast with your host Paul J. Long and all things fun. We'll let the fun begin. Woo! What is good, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Fundamism podcast. I, as always, am your boy, Paul J. Long. We're coming to you from an exciting radio studio today. This is like the real deal. We're coming to you from 610 Sports Radio. Before we get into our exciting guest, I'd like to shout out our sponsor, Charlie Hustle. I'm actually sporting this dope Charlie Hustle sweatshirt. Rob, you see this thing? Showtime, Patrick Mahomes. You know who that is? He throws no-look passes. So today, we got a good friend and mentor of mine. He's pushed me along in my development. Super excited about it. Mr. Bob Fescoe, Kansas City legend. What's up, buddy?
Am I allowed to talk now?
Yes, you can talk.
Okay, I can talk now. How are you? Thanks for having me on this. I'm very excited.
I'm on cloud nine that you're here.
I love your equipment. I've told you that before, but now I actually get to see your radio equipment. It is fantastic.
I love that you clarified my radio equipment. So first question I start with every single guest, Bob.
Right.
What do you do for fun?
Hang out with you. No, I'm serious. You make me laugh. You make me smile. You always put me in a good mood.
Thanks, man. That is true. We dabble in some afternoon drinks.
Every once in a while when you're free and you're not too big for your britches and you can kind of hang out with the little people in
when
this
I
world.
Get an invite.
You always get an invite.
That's
I think
true.
I'm free tomorrow if you want to go hang out.
Oh, what is good tomorrow? Hey, you know where you should go? We're going to Updown tomorrow to play pinball in the afternoon.
All right.
And we might go to John Stoner's Bar and Grill where he makes
The Colonial
pizzas.
Club, you mean?
The Colonial Club.
Yeah.
You did a live show from there, right?
I did. Nice place. Fun place down in Strawberry Hill in KCK.
So I know this is far-fetched to believe that you have fun outside of just hanging with me, but like you've had a stressful week at work. You want to get down to just like you and get your mind right. What do you do?
I think hanging with my kids, man. I think that puts everything in perspective, like what it's all about. I think too many people worry about everything that they shouldn't worry about, and they don't worry enough about the things they should worry about. And hanging out with the kids, seeing their reaction, seeing them play sports, picking them up after school, that makes me smile a lot. Now, then once they get home and they're hellions, then it's a different ball game. But there's about a 20-minute span there where I'm having the time of my life, and I'm smiling and I'm laughing and I'm joking with them, and then they get hungry or hangry, as we like to call it. And they have the Fescoe gene, and it goes off the rails a little bit. But that puts everything into perspective. Being a dad changes everything.
That's absolutely right. And you have some adorable kids. We do share in some family experiences. My daughter loves your two daughters, so we get to see that dynamic of you guys at home. And man, it does get crazy around the Fescoe household from time to time. But you said hangry, and you said that runs in the family. But you've been dieting, or now it's a lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
But like, how do you curb the because like you just eat cauliflower and
I don't
celery
eat cauliflower. I hate cauliflower. I will not eat that. Chicken and lettuce is my go-tos.
Chicken?
Yeah.
Does it have to be grilled?
Yeah. I mean, it has to be grilled for the healthy aspect of things. But how do I curb it? Celery, sometimes apple, banana, handful of nuts. I love eating nuts. I'll tell you what, man. Costco's got this set of fancy nuts that they sell now for $17.95. You get a big jar of nuts and the cashews, the almonds, all the filberts. $17.95 unsalted. It's the best purchase you can make.
What are filberts?
I don't know. I just made that one. I've seen that term before, though. I think it's a kind of nut. It's like a tree nut, right?
Never heard of it. Oh. You are a morning show host for 610 Radio. Been such for quite a while. Are fantastic at what you do.
Thank you.
Somewhat polarizing, a lot of folks would say, in Kansas City. So talk to me about like your journey into, because I want to talk more about how do you deal with the trolls and, all that stuff that people in the media have to deal with. But talk to us a little bit about your journey into the media. How did you get here?
Well, I drove.
Oh.
Yeah.
What do you drive?
I started when I was like 8 years old. Like people don't like believe that story. I know I tell it all the time. My dad's almost 70, retired, and still doesn't know what he wants to do for a living, right? He's still trying to find himself at 70 years old. And I knew at 8, man. I knew at 8 watching the Giants play football on Sunday that I wanted to be like Pat Summerall and John Madden. John Madden was my idol growing up. I loved John Madden so much, and I wanted to be like him. And then I decided that and kind of directed towards the talk side of things because I was a little too opinionated to be on the play-by-play side of things. Yeah, yeah, absolutely me. So I decided that the talk route was going to be it. But I knew from 8, like, this is what I wanted to do. I knew I was never going to play sports. I knew I wasn't going to ever be big enough. And quite honestly, I was too lazy. I didn't go and work out at 5 o'clock in the morning to try to play a sport that I didn't have God's gifts to do anyway. So I figured I could talk about it. I got a gift for gab. I always did when I was a kid. And so that's just kind of where it went. And I decided from the time I was 8 to here I am at almost 42 years old. And I've been very fortunate enough to be able to do that.
What's been the most challenging moment in your broadcasting career?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because it's every day is a challenge. I mean, every day you go to work and you have to figure out, okay, what are we going to do for 4 hours to keep people entertained? Because everybody thinks they can do your job and they can't. And I'm not saying that to be braggadocious. I'm not saying that to be an ass or anything like that. It's just, there's a lot of prep time. I mean, people say, well, you only work 4 hours a day. I go, yeah, but there's 20 hours a day preparing for that 4 hours a day. And I think the challenging thing is how to stay fresh, how to stay informative, how to stay entertaining, how to stay on top of everybody's mind as well, and always be at the forefront of everybody. Like, if I want sports, I know I got to go to 610. I know I got to go to Fescoe to hear what they're going to say. So every day is a challenge. Every day is a different challenge because what you did yesterday just doesn't matter. I mean, you can't say, well, we talked about that yesterday. You've got to find a way to kind of keep the same topics fresh, entertaining, different, and kind of moving in the forward direction. You
bring up a great point in terms of keeping things fresh. You and I have talked before about, why don't you talk more NBA basketball, or why don't we talk more KU or, Mizzou or whoever you're a fan of. And you told me the listeners don't want to hear that right now. Like, if it's not Chiefs right now, no one wants to talk about it.
I mean, what's everybody talking about in Kansas City? I mean, we had an old boss here by the name of John Hanson, who his wife danced with both of us for the BMA Dancing with the Stars. And some would say she's more talented than he is. But he gave me...
Hotter, too.
Much hotter. Well, I don't know about that. John's a pretty good-looking cat.
Yeah, he's got that tall factor.
He does, yeah. But the advice that he gave, and the one thing that I'll take away from him is talk about what sports fans are talking about. And right now, sports fans and everybody, not just sports fans, but everybody in Kansas City is talking about the Chiefs. They can't get enough of what's going on at Arrowhead with this football team because of how they grabbed the city. It's like in 14 and 15, if you weren't talking Royals, you were missing the boat, man. You were missing the boat on that one. So if I'm sitting here talking about the NBA or college basketball, nobody gives a rip about any of that in Kansas City right now. They care about who are we going to face in the second round of the playoffs? What do we think Patrick Mahomes is going to do? And can this defense go out there and get a stop? And man, it's been so enjoyable to watch this football team play because of how fun they are. And, people I know in this town are so negative towards the playoffs and so negative towards Arrowhead in the postseason and potentially the Colts in the postseason. But we got a quarterback that we've never had before that has brought a different way of thinking to not only sports fans, but to people in general and in life. I met with a woman a few months ago by the name of Shelly Armato. She runs a company called My Smart Plans, and it's a company that basically deals with construction companies and keeps everybody on track. We don't have to get into the long and short of it.
Logistics.
Yeah, like, basically keeping everybody in line. You're going to be here. This is going to be done. That's going to be done. The organization of everything. And she talked to me she called it the Mahomes Effect. And I said, well, I'm stealing that. I'm going to use it on the radio. She goes, no, it's true. I mean, because you look at a kid like Mahomes, who a lot of people didn't believe in when he was getting, drafted and, he was unorthodox and played at Texas Tech, and who knew what to expect from him.
You thought Baker Mayfield was going to have better stats. I remember.
Baker Mayfield put up some pretty good numbers. We were actually talking about it this morning. Like, if Patrick Mahomes doesn't have this unbelievable season, Baker Mayfield's being talked about as the best quarterback in the AFC this year because of what he was able to do. But she said the Mahomes effect. I go, what do you mean by the Mahomes effect? And she goes, just the impact of positivity that, if you believe you can do it, you can do it. Look what Mahomes is, the effect that he's having right now on the city. And this was like back in October or November. We talked about the Mahomes effect. And I think he has given a lot of people a different way of looking at things. Instead of having, we can't win, you now have, and at least I have, hey, we can win because we've got this kid who has had this impact on this city like no other athlete has had before.
Right. The other thing that I would struggle with if I was in your role and with somebody your skill set and as entertaining as you are, and that's what I feel like people tune in for. They tune in for entertainment.
Yes, absolutely. Especially in the morning. They don't want to hear a breakdown of a 3-4 defense. Quite honestly, that's boring.
Exactly. And so with your skill set and your ability to talk, if I was in your shoes, I feel like I can make anything entertaining. Mm-hmm. And so, thinking through whether we were to potentially have an NBA team or some, awesome sports movie that I watch watched, and you do dabble in stuff like that, obviously, but I feel like you have the ability to make any topic interesting. Is that something that you ever like struggle with? You still know what the listeners want to hear, and you don't force your hand down any other path.
Well, I think I've got a great supporting cast with that, with Josh Klingler and Ryan Wachowski. I mean, the three of us together make it work and find ways to make certain things entertaining, because college basketball is not an entertaining product by any stretch of the means. There is no way in shape or form you can tell me right now college basketball is entertaining. It's not. But we found a way to make it kind of entertaining today, to talk about why it's not entertaining. What has changed over the years? Where do you see, the sport going? It only matters in March. Why does it only matter in March? Why has the play gone down? You find ways to make things entertaining, and that's because you got great people around you. And without those two guys, I mean, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. These two guys and Spectre in the past, with that as well. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to be around a lot of good people who, when you throw out an idea, they fire back something. They challenge you on something. They figure out ways to maybe make something that isn't entertaining very entertaining. Like the other night, we watched the Masked Singer. I don't know if you saw that.
I saw a little bit of it.
The unicorn and all that stuff dancing around. How entertaining was that? Like, that was one of the best things. We talked for hours about that after that, because it was so entertaining and trying to figure out who is who. You can take anything and make it entertaining if you can find the right angles to it.
That's true. We actually were watching that. We turned it off.
Why?
To watch a movie called White Boy Rick.
Oh.
You ever heard of that?
No, I have not.
It is amazing.
Is it?
Matthew McConaughey's in it.
Oh, I like him.
It's about the youngest ever FBI informant. Took down a whole drug ring. It's crazy. 15 years old.
Have you watched
Detroit.
Bird Box yet?
Is that the name of it? Bird Box?
Bird Box.
Yeah,
on Netflix.
with Sandra Bullock.
Yeah.
I haven't watched it.
I haven't watched it yet either. Maybe you should come over. We can watch it together.
That sounds like a great time.
Okay.
I was noticing that in your accolades and thoughtful words that you are giving to individuals that have helped prop you up and make your show what it is today, you really didn't mention any guest hosts that you've had in the past.
Oh, there's been so many. Too many to name.
So many great ones. I mean, there's like the Paul Longs of the world, and there's not really actually
pretty
it's a pretty
much
short
where it
list.
starts and ends. Yeah, very
Right.
short list. Yes, very short list. Absolutely.
But it's cool to hear you talk about challenging yourself and surrounding yourself with people that will challenge you.
You can't do anything on your own. And I was telling, who was I talking to the other day? Oh, it was Spectre. He took over as the new boss of 610. And I said, don't try to do it on your own. Ask for help. And I think you experience that once you get older. Like when you're in your 20s, you've got the word by the balls, man. You've got this thing. You got it. You know what you're going to do. And then by the time you hit 30, you realize you're stupid. And then by the time you hit 40, you realize you don't know anything.
Right.
And you need all the advice of everybody around you. It takes age to kind of figure that out. And it's not a sign of failure or anything that you're looking for help. It's a sign of, hey, some people have better ideas. Some people can make things work that I can't make work. It's better to have a village, instead of just trying to do everything on your own.
Sure. But there is one thing that I feel like you've done really well on your own, at least. I mean, you've had a lot of drive, and it's something that I admire you a great deal for. I gave you grief earlier about cauliflower and celery and all that stuff. You did change your lifestyle to get a lot healthier.
Sure.
And that is a decision that you make. And I'm always, peer pressuring you up, trying, hey, man, you want to get down these wings, whatever. Man. And you're pretty darn good about saying, no, I don't want that. Because obviously
you eat like it's unbelievable how you eat.
Food is amazing.
It is, and I love food, and I have an addiction to it, and I'm not afraid to admit that. I have a very addictive personality, and it's not just food. I mean, like I have to limit what I drink, because I can't sit there on a Tuesday night and just have a cocktail. I have to have 10, and so I know that if I don't have any, I'm fine. But as soon as I crack open a bottle, I'm drinking until the cows come home. That's just my personality. And that's the way it was with me with food. I can't go in and say, oh, I'll split an order of wings with you. I'll take 2 orders for myself. I'll have that whole pizza for myself.
Yeah, I heard you say today that you wanted 3. You can't stop at 2 cheeseburgers. You got to have 3.
You got to have that third. Yeah,
That's
right. Like I just can't. So I knew in order to change my life, to lose weight, to become healthier, I have to drastically change my life. And I know there are people who get on me for that and they go, you're so regimented. But that's me.
Yeah.
Don't worry about me.
Exactly.
It's not you. You don't have to do it. You don't have to follow this. This is who I am. This is what I have to do in order to maintain the lifestyle that I'm in right now. And I look at a piece of candy and gain 10 pounds. It's real. Like it's very upsetting, right? I can't splurge. I can't go out and enjoy something because I feel like I'm gaining that weight back. And so I've got to be very regimented. And I don't care what you say about it or what my wife says about it. My wife or anybody, like I've got to do what's best for me. Nobody knows you as well as you know you. And I know what my strengths and weaknesses are.
So that's interesting, though, because so many folks, especially in like social settings, you talked about drinking. There's always that one person that's like, hey, are you not drinking tonight? Why, you should have a drink.
Right.
What drives that? Is that an insecurity in that individual?
So. Yeah, because we've all done that. We've all been that guy. Come on, drink. You know, all right, fine. And then the guy's like missing work the next day. Like, oh my, what did I just do there? Right.
What kind of drunk are you?
Happy.
Are you really?
I think so. I don't get mad. I get mellow.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that. I get mellow. I don't get angry. There's a lot of angry drunks out there. Oh God, they're nasty. But
yes.
I just, I enjoy myself.
I feel like you had a metaphor in life in what you just said. Like your life would be so much better if you stopped worrying about what everybody else was doing and just did you.
And I kind of have done that.
Yes.
I mean, you mentioned the social media. I can't remember the last time I responded to a tweet or actually sent something out because I just don't care because the social media aspect of the world has just become a negative cesspool. And there's obviously good people and everything, but the majority of the feedback you get is negative and stuff like that. I'm like, I'm 40 plus years old now. I've got a wife and 2 kids. I don't need to deal with that in my life. And so I've cut that out. And I think that's helped me a lot. Like I don't spend time looking at Twitter anymore. I don't really spend that much time concerning myself with what other people think about me because it really doesn't matter. It's a small percentage of the population that thinks everything is terrible. And so if you start to read that kind of stuff, it starts to infest and gets into your mind. And then you start to believe, oh my God, I suck. I'm terrible. I'm a horrible human being because Twitter's saying this stuff about me. And then you realize like Twitter's like 2% of America. And you think about what small percentage of Kansas City's on there. So I just said to myself, I'm just not going to get caught up in the negativity. Life's too short to be negative about things and live in a world where everything is focused on the negative instead of living in a world where things are focused on the positive.
That's amazing because it's a conversation that you and I have had time and time again, specifically relation to Twitter and Facebook even for that regard. But
at least Facebook, you put your name on it,
Exactly.
With Twitter, you're an anonymous person or an egg or something like that,
What was the moment that you realized that stuff didn't matter? Because I remember sometime last year, 2 years ago, you used to get wrapped up in the Twitter beef. So
I did.
What was the moment where you're like, you know what, forget this?
I think it happened over the summer when people claimed I had burner accounts and I was tweeting things that were, Danny Duffy called me, he goes, bro, you're getting beat up on Twitter. I go, for what? And like all this stuff was coming out that I had all these burner accounts and all this nonsense. I'm like, all right, I'm out of this stuff. I'm out of this business. And it ended up being like 2 14-year-old kids who thought they were going to have a good time and start, making stuff up about me. And I'm like, I'm just not dealing with that. I'm done. I'm out.
So you mentioned Danny Duffy. That's a dude that we have in common. Kind of, the beginning of you and I's relationship happened back in 2014. We had a mutual friend in Pam Highland that we didn't really know about. Exactly. But that, of course, is your mother-in-law.
Oh. I love my mother-in-law. I love her to death. Like she can move in with me tomorrow if she wanted to.
What do you love most about her?
Everything. No, I'm serious. Like it's hard to say. Like she's just there for us,
Sure.
We moved back to Kansas City in 2010. We stayed with them for 6 months. Like she's never said no. She's always been there, always willing to help. Just she's just an extension of the family, and it's so important to have her around.
Well, speaking of the reason why I brought it up, speaking of somebody always willing to help out, that's exactly how we got connected. So in 2014, the Royals are going on their magical run. I, of course, with my buddy John Stoner, wearing these ridiculous cat suits.
You were?
It's something silly. We got connected with a 501c3 called Noah's Bandage Project. Scott Wilson, obviously Danny Duffy's connected, starter for the Royals. And you and I crossed paths. And I just feel like we see things very similarly when it comes to putting yourself out there to help others. So is that something that you've always had innately?
No,
or is it?
No, not at all. And it was something, and I credit John McCarthy, who's the executive director of Team Smile right now, with bringing this part of me out. And it was in, what year did the Royals win the World Series? 2015. So it was January of 2015. And he had asked me to be on, was it 2015 that I did it, or was it 2014? 2015. He'd asked me to do Dancing with the Stars for the Bma Foundation. And I said, I don't know what this is all about. You want me to dance and raise money for what? I have no idea what this is about. And so, but I agreed to do it because he was working for Charlie's House at the time, which was a great nonprofit here in town who's building a prototype house to show parents how to protect their home against things that could potentially lead to death. Charlie passed away by pulling a dresser down on him. And who knows about that kind of stuff, right? You don't think about that kind of stuff. And so he was the executive director at the time, and he said, would you be willing to do this? I'm like, All right, I guess. I mean, I'll go take a couple of dance lessons, but I didn't realize the fundraising aspect that was involved with it and what difference this kind of stuff made. And I credit John McCarthy for changing my life and opening my eyes to all of this, because if he never asked me to do Dancing with the Stars, I don't know that I'd ever be involved with Team NOAA and now Bma Foundation and moving on to another foundation board for autism and just all the other stuff that we're able to accomplish and do would not have happened if it wasn't for John opening my eyes to this and saying, I want you to do Dancing with the Stars. And I tell him that all the time, and he doesn't want to ever hear the accolades or anything like that. But if it wasn't for him asking me to do it, we probably aren't sitting here today talking about this kind of stuff, because growing up, we never did anything like that. We never did nonprofits. We never did donating and giving back or all that kind of thing. I mean, I don't know why. Maybe it's become more important in the community now or whatever it was, but it was never something that I was really a part of. And I got involved, I got entrenched, and I saw the difference we were making for people and the smiles that, it wasn't necessarily a monetary thing. It was like people are smiling and having a good time because they got a moment in their lives where they're dealing with a bunch of shit and they don't have to deal with it for this moment in time. And I saw that difference. And I thought, boy, that really kind of bit me, that, helping others bug. And I love doing it. Like, there's nothing better than just putting a smile on somebody's face. And my kids are that way now. They didn't want Christmas this year. They wanted to give the needy families and foundations and things like that. So we did that. And it's been a game changer for me.
So New Year's was recent. It's a time where everybody's doing all these New Year's resolutions, and they're saying, I'm going to get in the gym more. I'm going to diet more. I'm going to do whatever it may be. I'm going to get out of my comfort zone. And I think about you. And you're obviously in the media, and you're always in the limelight, either on the radio or on TV, talking about Chiefs or Royals or 501c3s, whatever it may be. I don't see you as the type that would enjoy being in front of 1,000 people watching you dance as a skill set that you don't necessarily own innately.
Yeah.
Talk to me about. What are you
saying? I'm not a good dancer?
I mean, I'm saying I don't think you were born.
Very insulting.
I don't think you have a ton of rhythm, is what I'm saying to you. Tell me about that experience. Were you nervous? Was that the most nervous you've ever been?
No, it wasn't. When I was in 7th and 8th grade, I was quite the thespian. Actor. I really, Entourage pisses me off because I should be Vinny Chase. And I tell my mother that all the time. I said, I grew up outside of New York City. I said, you had all these opportunities to get me involved in acting and on the stage, and you pushed me kind of to the sports side of things. I think at that time, guys are supposed to do sports. Wasn't necessarily the route you were going to take. And I thought, man, I really liked acting. I like performing in front of people. I do. And doing Dancing with the Stars was, very exhilarating. It gave me that bug again. That, hey, I got to get out here and act and be in front of people and do this kind of stuff, because I just like it. It's a rush of adrenaline, man. And I forgot how good that was because I haven't done it since 8th grade,
But you're not the dude that's going to go out on a dance floor and dance if there's music on.
I don't do that kind of stuff because I know I don't. You got to know your limitations, my friend.
Right.
You got to know your limitations, and I know I can't move.
Well, so I'll tell you. So I did it the year after you at your urging, and it was an amazing experience. That was the most nervous I had ever been. I mean, really? I go on stage all the time. I speak to thousands of people.
I think I was the nervous part for me, and you did it at the convention center. I did it at the old Marriott on Metcalf. The nervous part for me, and you didn't have, I don't know if you had to deal with this. We had to stand in the kitchen the entire time.
We did too.
Did you stand in the kitchen?
Yeah.
So we're standing in the kitchen, and I was like last or second to last. I'm like, oh my God. That was the nervous part, just standing there waiting for it to happen.
Right.
It wasn't necessarily going on the stage and performing and doing it. And when people are chanting your name and, they're holding up signs, I got a rush of adrenaline. That was spectacular, yeah.
So recently was listening to a podcast, Doug Benson. Do you know that guy? He's a comedian. He's made a living off getting high, but hilarious dude. And so they did a little bit on their podcast recently where they did impressions, and they had to tell somebody to do an impression. I'm not going to tell you to do somebody's impression because I don't know your skill set. Do you do any impressions?
Not really. I like to think I do every once in a while.
You say you're a thespian, so I thought I'd give you an opportunity to shine.
I don't know. Who do you want me to do? Why don't you throw somebody out there?
Oh, man.
And then I'll try to do that person. I fancy myself as a singer, so if you want me to sing, I can.
Do you really?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm good.
What's your favorite genre?
Oh, man. I don't know. I like Bon Jovi.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Give me a bar from Bon Jovi.
No, I can't do that.
What do you mean?
I can do Cher. Do you believe in life after love?
I was on that today, wasn't I, Rob?
How
I couldn't
good
get
is
up.
that?
That was because that was your drop. You had that at going to break.
Yeah.
Because the NFL just got sponsored by Caesar's Palace or
That's
something, right?
Yeah, and Cher was there or something like that.
Oh yeah, I think you said that
Actually,
she's going to do the
Celine
Super Bowl.
Dion, where her heart will go
right.
on. Yes.
But yeah, so you guys segue to. Did you confuse those two?
I always do, don't I? I throw out a lot of nonsense, and people are like, "Huh?"
Oh man,
I feel like Will Ferrell and I are very similar.
How so?
Just with nonsense. Like
Yeah?
I don't know if you watched the Rose Parade on New Year's Day with him
didn't.
on Funny or Die. Oh my God, he was making up some of the most ridiculous things about what was going on in the parade, and I do that a lot on the air. Or I'll just say like we were talking about the other day that song "It Never Rains in Sunny California" or Southern California, and it's by Albert Hammond is the name of that singer. And Ryan goes, "Oh, it never rains in sunny Southern California." I said, "Oh yeah, Mamas and the Papas." And he goes, "Okay, I don't think so." So he Googles it. He goes, "Well, that's Albert Hammond who sang that." I go, "Yeah, who do you think the Papa was?" And just kind of go like that. And
witty.
Yeah, like this kind of that kind of humor. It doesn't resonate for everybody.
No,
it really
does not.
doesn't.
And you have a
just does
sarcasm
not.
about you too that is really it's tough for individuals to see.
Yeah.
And I mentioned earlier you're somewhat polarizing in the community, and mainly it's because people don't know if you're being serious or you're joking.
Sure.
And
I think if you lean towards the fact that I'm joking 95% of the time, you're good.
agreed. But you're a very opinionated individual. And I would consider myself a friend. At least you are my friend. And when we're hanging out sometimes, you'll say things. And you'll say things in true Bob Fescoe fashion. It could be sports related or something opinionated. And I'll say to you, Bob, you can't possibly believe that. Like, you're not on air right now. And then you'll put all your chips in. No, I absolutely believe.
Yeah, I don't do like my beliefs. Like I don't act in that sense on the air. Like when I sing, that's acting.
You never have a position that you exaggerate for the sake of
Not really. No.
listening. Really?
Yeah. How can you be authentic and do that?
Well, I don't know. I feel like
because
there's a
then
lot of radio show hosts that do that.
But you can't remember your lies. You know what I'm like? If I got on there and made things up for the sake of making things up, and then we had the show the next day and we're talking about the same thing, and I don't remember what I said the next day, then I look like an ass,
That'd be
right?
a
I look like
struggle.
an ass on my own anyway.
Sure.
So I can't get out there and just make things up or create a thought or create a side like they do on ESPN. That's not my game. That's not how I roll.
Sure. So one thing that I do know about you is you do enjoy, for the most part, life. You struggled with your 40th birthday.
You didn't like it. Still don't like being 40.
What is the deal with that?
I just feel old. I remember when my dad turned 40, and I was like 8 years old at that time. I'm like, boy, he is so old, right? And then you get there, and you're like, oh my God, I'm here now, and that's where my dad was at that
But nothing
time.
changed. That's what I don't get. Like, the only
The
thing that...
age changes. I don't like getting older. Like, I still feel like I'm 25.
Yes.
And I'm a hell of a lot closer to 50 now than I am to 25. Mentally, I'll always be in that 25 stage. I will always be that youthful enthusiasm will always be who I am. I will always be, and it's always been from the time of that I was a kid. I always wanted to be Joey Zinnis, the kid that lived across the street. And my father used to say, "You're like, Peter Pan. You never want to grow up." And he used to get mad at me for that kind of stuff because I was like this as a child too, very sarcastic,
Right.
humor type stuff. My mother would always be laughing, and my dad would get mad, and I'm like, why are you getting mad at this kind of stuff? So I never wanted to grow up. I never wanted to age. And now I see myself in that 40, closer to 50 than I am to 25. And I don't like it because there's still, I'm still a kid and I will always be a kid. I'm never going to grow up because I think growing up sucks.
Sure. So that was always my argument to you. This is not something that you uniquely deal with. Like, there are so many people that listen to this and struggle with the thought of growing older.
Oh, sure. Everybody does. Yeah.
But in that vein, when you think about what you just said, I'll always be 25 or I'll always be a kid or whatever, maybe Rob's down here on the ground. He's looking awesome. We didn't know if you were posing or what. We're enjoying this.
Are those Banana Republic Traveler pants?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're the best. I got every color. I got a new pair coming this week.
I bet you don't have a stylist, though, like our cameraman, Rob. Rob, he purchases the services of a stylist.
Like to dress him?
Yeah.
I found those pants on my own. I'm not
Well,
I would have never found these on my own.
Oh, really? Just go into the store and be like, hey, what do you got? And they like to.
shopping.
Oh, I love it.
so does she send you a box of stuff and you give her your size? Oh, you have to go buy it?
Yeah.
It's not like the box. Have you seen those box deals?
Yeah.
It's not one of those deals.
No, this is more personal.
Dude, I'll take you shopping. We can go shopping.
All right.
Would you enjoy that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Gosh. Rob is amazing. He's got an amazing story. I'll have to tell it to you someday. Maybe I'll feature him as a podcast
You
guest.
should. He's crawling on the floor. You might as well.
He was raised in a country, was it of the old Russia?
It was former Soviet Union.
Former Soviet Union.
Which is the new Russia.
That's what I meant to say. Listen, I mean, you heard the most recent deal, the Trump and the Russia deal with the Afghanistan. Did you hear all that yesterday?
No, I really don't follow that much
It's so
anymore.
fun, though. It's so
not.
entertaining.
It's not. It really isn't fun. It's scary. It's not fun. It's not.
Rob, what country are you from?
From Tatarstan.
Did you know Tartarstan?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm very familiar with the tartar stands.
Are you really?
Yeah. It's good company. They made tartar sauce.
So, circling back, I know you enjoy life, struggle with the 40th birthday. My point to you was always that if you're always 25 at heart or as a kid, then this numeric age is just a number that doesn't matter because it's how you carry yourself and it's how you live your life. And on the outward or outwardly experience, I don't see you as acting any different or talking any different or having any less fun or acting less childish. So it always is interesting to me when I see people get hung up on this age thing.
Well, it's death, bro. I mean, like you're getting closer to that. Like my kid's 8 and 9 years old now. They're going to be in college in 10 years.
Yes.
I'm looking at retirement and all this. Like I worry about those things that are way out as opposed to maybe I should. I don't know, but I do. I think about those things all the time.
Tell me about a time where worry has moved you forward.
Never.
We should.
Well, my wife always says, "Don't borrow trouble" and things like that.
Oh.
You know? So I don't anymore. I really don't. I don't. What am I going to worry about? I can't control things I can't control.
That's true. Well, the reason why I brought all that up is because you do typically live in the moment and you've had some amazing experiences brought to you, not just by your personality, but obviously working here in the sports industry. So what are some of your most memorable experiences that were created as a result of your job?
Well, there's been a lot. I think the most memorable experience for me, and I've been very blessed and fortunate enough to be at Super Bowls and Final Fours and World Series.
Chiefs Super Bowls?
Not yet. Well, I don't. When are we airing this?
It's coming. I think this will be right before our second win.
Okay, so
in the playoffs.
Not Chiefs Super Bowl, not yet, but headed there. Yeah. But the best thing that I've been to, and I tell people this is, and it happened by just chance, and it was seeing Lance Armstrong on the final day of his last Tour de France win. And I was in Paris with my parents. Yes, I went to Paris with my parents. And it was the last day of our trip there. It was a week. And they're like, oh, we got to go see this museum where there's a concrete figure of Pluto. I'm like, I'm not interested anymore. Please, enough. And there's a big crowd gathering on the Champs-Élysées in Paris, which is like the main street. And so what's going on here? Mm-hmm. Oh, it's the last day of the Tour de France. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, Lance Armstrong. So he came and rode around a couple of times. This is before he was a douche, you know? And so I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. I'm seeing one of the coolest things ever just by happenstance because I'm not going to look at the thinker, you know, engrossed in marble in some museum in Paris anymore. So I thought that was the most thrilling thing that I was part of because at that time, Lance Armstrong was looked at as like this great athlete. Nobody knew he was doping and lying.
Were you like destroyed or distraught when you found out that he was?
No, because I mean, to do something like that, let's be honest here, you got to be putting something in your body,
True.
Right? It was the whole lying and denial. That's why Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds and people ask why they're not in the Hall of Fame. They lied and denied. And I think in America, if you're up front and you admit and you say, yeah, I screwed up, you're going to be all right.
Yeah, that's true. So, Tour de France. Mm-hmm. Give me one more.
Oh, the Royals winning the World Series. I mean, that's special.
What specifically do you remember about that?
Everything. I mean, like, you can go from like October of 14 to November 2nd of 2015, and that just a spectacular time for Kansas City, a spectacular time for us. But I always tell people the greatest month that I ever had in my work profession was October of 2014. I always ask that when I speak to like the Rotary Club, you know, the rubber chicken circuit and stuff like that. What's the greatest month you've ever had at your job?
Greatest month you've ever had at your job?
And people look at you and they're like, Never, you know.
Yours is October.
Right. And I said, mine's October 2014. That grabs their attention. They think, well, first of all, you know the greatest month. And then October of 2014, I think most people would look at that as one of the greatest months of their lives if you grew up in Kansas City.
That's true.
Because of that first World Series run by the Royals.
That's so cool.
It was unbelievable. And they didn't win it. And it wasn't that big a deal that they lost.
No.
It really wasn't. You walked out of that stadium that night after Game 7.
High-fiving people.
Yeah.
I remember vividly.
Like Josh Klingler and I walked out and went, that was awesome, right? Like, hey, if we never get back, we had that experience. That was really cool. And we saw how many people use the Royals to get through crap in their lives, whether it was battling cancer, diseases, or whatever it was, man. People use the Royals as a way to escape. And I never realized, like, people did that before, like with sports. They use that as like an escape mechanism. And every night at 7 o'clock, when the Royals came on, they were using that as an escape to get through whatever was going on in their daily lives and whatever was bad in their lives that day. And so that to me was really a big time eye opener. And going through that 2014 season and then the 2015 season, you just knew they were going to do something special.
Right.
And they did, and they won the World Series. And being in New York, and I remember looking at I think it was 2:14 in the morning, and I'm standing in the dugout talking to Dayton Moore, and I just
Bragger.
went, wow, the Royals. I mean, like it takes time to set in because you're just constantly going. And I was working for a TV station at the time, so we were doing stuff at night, and then I was driving into the city and doing stuff in the morning. It was just like a whirlwind, right? It was just an absolute whirlwind. And I remember coming home, taking off from LaGuardia. And I fell
Best
asleep.
airport in the world.
It's awful. What a dump. And I fell asleep. Like, it makes KCI look like a glowing. And then I fell asleep on the plane as soon as we took off, and then woke up, and we had landed in Kansas City, and then it was go home, and then the parade was the next day.
Yes.
And that was bigger than I think anybody ever expected. No, I don't think anybody expected the parade to be what it was that day, and how just unbelievable that was, and what that did, you know, for this town, and how, you know, every time I talk about that baseball team, it makes me emotional because it like baseball was important, but it wasn't about the baseball.
Right.
It really was.
The way they carry themselves, the unity, the way that they brought the city together.
Yeah, it was all about people finding out how great Kansas City is again, and believing in ourselves again more than anything.
Suits.
Because people in Kansas City always feel inferior at times. Like, oh, we're not as good as Chicago, blah, blah. Yeah, but we are. You know, and we got to stop living with that inferiority complex. I think 30 years of losing in baseball helps that.
Terrible.
You know, it was awful. And then to see that team turn it around and change the whole mindset of everybody, I think it changed the mindset of everybody in this town from we can't to yes, we can. And we still have a ways to go. You know, that state line being in the middle doesn't help things. But I still think that baseball team changed the entire mindset of everybody in Kansas City. It made everybody feel like they were winners, and you went to an airport and you had your Royals hat on, and people were high-fiving you that you didn't know, and the world was rooting for you, man. It was really cool. It was really awesome, and I think that's kind of, you know, lit a fire under the Chiefs. I think they saw what the Royals did and how that parade was and the reception that they got, and they go, we got to figure out a way to do this, because look at what happened here with the Royals, man. Look, 800,000 people celebrating us. We could get 800,000 people in red celebrating, you know?
I communicate with so many individuals to this day that I met as an extension of that 2014 run.
We're not here today if the Royals aren't
That's
good.
exactly right.
No, 100%. Like, if the Royals don't win in 2014 and 2015, I may not be in Kansas City. Who knows?
I'm probably not a motivational speaker.
Probably not.
Because, you know, so much of my story is dependent upon that little piece or period in my life. So, well, we've interviewed professional athletes, interviewed, you know, media personalities, CEOs. You have obviously seen some success in your business, and obviously we have a wide range of different types of listeners. What's been the biggest caveat, or the biggest thing to your success? I'm really articulate today.
You're good.
You like
That's
that?
fine.
You like that? What would you attribute your success to the most? If you could identify one thing, if you were giving somebody some advice that wanted to get into this line of business, what would it be?
Don't ask what's in it for me. Don't ask where am I going to get paid. Don't ask how much money. You just got to be willing to work. You got to be willing to, you know what? You may not be on the clock, but you got to be willing to do things. You got to form relationships. I think ultimately that's what it comes down to, is forming the right relationships, being willing to work, being available, always willing to go the extra mile. I mean, it sounds so cheesy, but in this business, you have to do those kind of things. I mean, there are so many kids today that walk out and expect to host a show in Kansas City because they did a podcast and they've never done anything else,
Right.
and they expect to be paid and whatnot. And I think there's more of a sense of entitlement now from kids than, say, when we were growing up and we came out and, I was raised with hard work. My parents worked. I mean, that's the way it was. You were going to put in hard work and eventually you were going to succeed because you were willing to put in the work and the time and the effort for it. And I think in a field like this, you have to be willing to do that. It's not just from 6 to 10 a.m. That's the downtime, 6 to 10 a.m. The time after 10 a.m. till you get back on the air at 6, that's the work time. That's the time you're putting in and making everything great.
Yeah. It's almost like from 6 to 10, that's the art gallery where people could walk around and see what you've painted, right?
They don't know what, went into that. And then that's why I go back to what we started with. Like, everybody thinks they can do what we do. And I'll invite anybody in anytime they want. Here you go. They get 5 minutes in, and they're like, well, where are the phone calls? I go, oh, that doesn't really exist anymore. We don't take phone calls anymore.
Right.
But I still got like 3 hours and 55 minutes to go. I'm like, have at it.
Yes.
Yeah, so it is a lot of work.
It's a blast, though, man.
It
I
is.
have so much fun, especially when you got good people, like you said. So, well, rapid fire to close up. Favorite condiment?
Well, I mean, are we talking
Top
anything?
of don't look for the right answer.
There's a wasabi sauce that I like made by Kikkoman that is really good. It's got like 10 calories in a tablespoon, and I use that for everything now. As like a dressing.
It's hot.
It gets you that little boom kick and then it goes away, just like wasabi does. But there's and I've never been a ranch dressing fan, as you know, but Smokehouse Barbecue has a ranch dressing that is to die for.
It's making the list?
Oh my God, it's so good.
Wow.
It's so good.
Favorite athlete of all time?
My childhood idol was Don Mattingly. I loved him growing up. I love watching Mark Bavaro play. Derek Johnson is my favorite Chief of all time. I love Danny Duffy. But to pick one athlete, I don't know who that would be. I would probably go back. You go back to the one that brought you, Don Mattingly.
Favorite 80s sitcom?
Wow, all of them?
Oh, yeah, that's a good answer.
Yeah.
I'm going to take it.
Yeah, all
Judges, we'll allow it.
Yeah.
Favorite wrestler of all time?
I wasn't really a big wrestling guy.
Really?
Yeah.
As
never
much
really
crap
was.
as you talk? I'm surprised.
Yeah, I was never allowed to watch that kind of stuff as a kid. We didn't have home box, as my parents called it, and MTV we watched when Michael Jackson debuted Thriller. But we weren't, I mean, of whatever reason, we weren't allowed to watch any of that kind of nonsense. So I never was into wrestling.
Best thing that's happened to you today?
Talking to you?
Ladies and gentlemen, that is Bob Fescoe of 610 Sports Radio. As always, I am Paul J. Long, coming to you on the Fundamism podcast, where we like to feature guests that are creating fun not only in their lives, but in the lives of others. So focus more on the things that give you strength as opposed to the things that tear you down. Bob, it was an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. We're wrapping up on the note where you said the best thing that's happened to you today is being on this podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope today you enjoy yours. Go out and create a little bit of fun for yourself and for those around you.